Today's message is titled Independence Can Become Resentment, Part 3. Independence Can Become Resentment, Part 3. This message is for anyone that has a problem trusting anyone, asking for anything, or expecting good from others. This message is for anyone that has a problem trusting anyone, asking for anything, or expecting good from others. This message is for anyone that needs to forgive themselves for always depending on yourself. For anyone that needs to forgive themselves for always depending on yourself. And I know that one is going to sound crazy, but just bear with me and it'll make sense. So, before we get started, I do just want to pray. This is the first time that I've ever needed 3 different episodes to get a point across, and I hope that with all of these episodes that the point does come across. So, with that being said, Lord, I pray that whoever hears this message and needs to receive this message receives it. I pray that whoever needs to allow themselves to seek more of you will do that. I pray that whoever needs to remove themselves in their life, in their relationships, in their jobs, in their careers, in their goals, in their dreams, that they can do it. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Now, with that being said, let's get straight into it. Independence can become resentment. If you missed the first 2 parts, check on the YouTube, speaking of which, at Simeon Robinson, that's SIMEN ROBINSON. At Simeon Robinson, you'll see the first 2 parts. But let's do a speed run really quick. No one is ever truly independent. No one is ever truly independent. The definition of independence means free from outside control, not depending on another's authority. And that's the definition that most of us correlate independence with. However, there is another definition that says not depending on another for livelihood or subsistence. And this is why no one is ever truly independent, because we all depend on someone or something else at some point or at some level. So we don't want to cling to being independent, but we also don't need to be codependent in order for us to develop better interdependence. To be interdependent means 2 or more people or things depend on each other. So it's not you depending on someone, it's you and someone depending on each other. So it's not one-sided. It's a fair relationship. It's mutualism. And being codependent is an excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner. So it is not bad to be interdependent. It is not bad to depend on someone and have someone depend on you. However, it does become bad when you do not know when to stop, or you don't know when to have the boundaries for yourself to tell that other person that they need to stop. So let's work on that. You must forgive yourself for choosing not to depend on anyone else. You must forgive yourself for choosing not to depend on anyone else. And this is one nuance why depending on anybody becomes so hard, because we've depended on the wrong people in the past and we have yet to forgive ourselves for making that wrong decision. It's a lot easier to say, oh, they were not dependable. They didn't show up for me when I needed them to show up. However, the signs usually were there that they wouldn't show up in the first place. They told you about another situation or another friend that they did not show up for, and you thought it would be different for you. So we must forgive ourselves for choosing the wrong people in the past, and we must forgive ourselves for choosing not to depend on anyone now. The reason I say that is because you would rather choose a definite difficulty over a possible disappointment. That is what being independent is. You would rather choose definite difficulty over possible disappointment. So it's going to be harder, and you know it's going to be harder on you, but you would rather say, hey, I'm fine with a harder route rather than the possibility of an easier route, because the possibility of an easier route comes with a possibility of being disappointed. The possibility of an easier route becomes harder mentally and emotionally, because now we have to accept the possibility of being disappointed. You cannot blame anyone else for the choices that you make yourself. You cannot blame anyone else for the choices that you make yourself. So if you are choosing to be independent, you then cannot blame the people who are trying to be there for you. If you are choosing to be independent, you then cannot blame the people who are trying to be there for you. And the reason I gave you the definition of independent is because if nobody else is controlling you, right, you're independent. Nobody else is forcing you to do or say or choose anything. You have to take accountability for your choices. If you truly are independent, independence comes with more accountability. Because now you have to say, oh, if nobody's controlling me, then I am in control of my actions. Then I am in control of what I say. Then I am in control of what I do. And if you are in control of what you do, then you need to be in control of apologizing. You need to be in control of apologizing to the other people you did not allow to be there for you. But more importantly, you need to apologize to yourself for the choices that you have made in the past, because you did not have the experience, or you did not have the pain, you did not have the trauma, you did not know any better. Now you do, but you're still making the same decisions. See, you expected somebody who wouldn't be there for you to be there for you. And now the people that will be there for you, you won't even accept them being there for you. So you expected and didn't get it. And now you can get it, but you won't even accept. Oh, you expected and did not get it. But now that you can get it, you won't even accept it, because it comes with the possibility of being disappointed. It comes with the possibility of having to do it all on your own anyway. And most people would rather cut the middleman out and say, I'll just eschew the disappointment. I'll just remove that from the equation and make my job, make my life, make my love harder. Because I would rather it be physically hard or physically harder than mentally and emotionally harder. And that is on us. That is not on anyone else. But since I love giving you definitions, I'm going to give you the definition for the word choose. Choose is a verb, which means you have to do it. You have to act it out. Actions speak louder than words, right? So to choose means to decide on a course of action. Here's the key. Typically after rejecting alternatives. I just love when the definitions prove the point for you. To choose means to decide a course of action, typically after rejecting alternatives. You're choosing to be independent because you have rejected the possibility of disappointment. You're choosing to be independent because you have rejected the possibility of disappointment. And you think I'm still talking about relationships. No, I'm talking about why you have been so independent with your relationship with God. And then when you get disappointed, that's the first person you call on. But before then, you didn't call on him. See, we're all independent until something goes wrong. And then when something goes wrong, we blame the people we could have asked for help in the first place. Why weren't you there? Well, why didn't you say you needed help? Why did you let me do this on my own? Because you didn't ask for my guidance. You didn't ask for my help. You didn't ask for my advice. You didn't ask for my protection. You didn't ask for my love. I'm going to give you those things regardless. But when you do things outside of my protection, when you do things outside of my guidance, I can no longer be held responsible. And you're wondering where God is. God's never left, but you left God. And this is the reason I started this entire 3-part series, because I thought I was going to talk to my sisters. That last point I made, when a man loves you, he protects you from outside and inside. So if you're doing something that's harming you, he has to say something. If a man sees you harming yourself and he does not say something in love, obviously he does not love you. If he sees that you're going back to your addiction and he doesn't try to stop that, he doesn't love you. If he sees that you're gaining weight mentally because of everything that's going on and he does not just try to say, hey, what's going on? Let's fix this problem because it's going to make another problem. He does not really love you. If he sees that the women that you're going out with don't really like you, which is a whole nother episode by itself, because I don't know why women hang around women that don't like them anyway. But if he sees that the so-called friends you have around you are not really friends and he tells you, but you still go with those friends, you can't say it was his fault. And you can't say, oh, he wasn't dependable. No, he told you, he gave you the warning. He told you what was going to happen or what could possibly happen. And you ignored it. So now you need to depend on him. But when he tried to protect you, you left. And you'll do the same thing with God, male or female. We will do the same thing with God. And I am not teaching, I am reaching, because the first person this message had to go to was me. The first person this message had to go to was me. I am legally blind. And I have always been my entire life. I got it from my grandfather. It's a very rare form of an eye disease known as retinitis pigmentosa. It affects 1 in every 300 to 500,000 people. It's pretty much a guarantee that you will go completely blind. I'm legally blind right now, so I can't see that well and I can't see at all at night. I only tell you that to tell you I subconsciously created my own identity of independence. I could never depend on my family because they were always late. So if I needed to get somewhere, I could never ask for a ride from them. If I needed to be somewhere or if I needed to get something done, I could never ask their help because they were never dependable. And subconsciously, that allowed me to say, hey, even if I got to wake up 2-3 hours earlier, even if I got to take 2-3 buses, even if I got to pay $40, $50, $60 just to get an Uber or a Lyft, I'd rather do that than to have the possibility of being late, than to have the possibility of being disappointed. And even after I moved away from my family, even after my family could no longer be that excuse or that hindrance, I still had that thought process in my mind. So even when people asked me to take a ride, I said, no, I got it. But Simeon, you live in Vegas now. It's 110 degrees. Why are you doing this? No, just take the ride. It took me a minute. It took me a minute. So until we realize that we don't need to be independent and we aren't independent, we cannot allow ourselves to even accept the fact that we can depend on people. We can depend more specifically on the people that God has put in your life. See, the reason that most people feel the need to be independent is because you depended on people that God didn't put in your life. So now, because you made the choices of the so-called friends, like I just said, you made the bad choices of the so-called friends to keep in your life and you depended on them. You can't depend on the people that God has put in your life to be blessings. It's all about choices. It's all about choices. And to choose means to decide a course of action. Hold on. Typically after rejecting alternatives. You're choosing to be independent because you rejected depending on people. And if you are truly independent, then everything you do is a choice. If you are not controlled by outside authority, and if you are truly independent, the way you claim to be, everything you do is a choice. Forgiveness is recommended because accountability is needed. Forgiveness is recommended because accountability is needed. So not only do you need to forgive yourself for depending on the wrong people, but you also need to forgive the people that you depended on in the past that didn't show up. And that is one of the toughest things that we have to do and why we can't get rid of independence. We have still yet to forgive the people who did not show up for us. You don't even know what they were dealing with. You don't even know their problems. But because we needed and they didn't show up, now we are afraid to depend on them, let alone anyone else. So not only do you need to forgive yourself for picking the wrong people to depend on, you need to forgive the people you depended on. And until you do that, it's going to be harder to let go of that independence. It's going to be harder to let go of that independence. And the reason I say that you need to forgive yourself and forgive the people you depended on is because if you have depended on food as a mental help, if you have depended on drugs for a mental help, if you have been addicted and you need to recover or you are in recovery or you've already been years without it, you need to forgive yourself and forgive what you depended on. Yes, the drugs were there, but I chose them. Yes, the drink was there, but I chose it. Yes, the women were there, but I chose it. Yes, the street was there, but I chose it. It's a lot easier to blame the thing because we can't forgive the thing. You have to blame the person and you have to blame, I won't even say blame. You have to take accountability with a person and you have to blame the choices. So forgive the choices and forgive yourself and who you chose to depend on, or what you chose to depend on, because God has already forgiven you. So if you are already forgiven, why are you still blaming yourself? If you are already recovering or recovered, why are you still blaming yourself? So many people used to be overweight and now they're skinny, but they still can't escape the mentality of being overweight. You still can't escape the words and how those people made you feel. Same thing goes with your vices. Same thing goes with your addictions. Same thing goes with your independence. You can't escape the feeling of not having anybody to depend on. And you know what's the craziest part? Most of us can relate to that feeling, but when we felt that feeling, we still didn't depend on God. Most of us have felt that, hey, I don't have anybody to call in this situation. And in that moment, we still chose the drugs. In that moment, we still chose the drinks. In that moment, we still chose the sin. In that moment, we still chose the things that made us feel good in that moment, but made us regret it directly after, or made us make decisions and actions that made the problem even worse. So you have to forgive it. And I asked this question probably the other two episodes, but I'll ask it again. Do you truly like being independent, or have the people that you depended on in the past force you to be? And this is in terms of all relationships. So it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be familial. So many women now feel the need to be independent because their mother told them they had to be. And the reason their mother told them they had to be is because sadly your mother was abandoned, or sadly the choices that your mother made left her alone. So she's thinking that she's telling you out of love, and now she has just planted a seed of fear in your life that, hey, you can never depend on anybody but yourself. And now that thought process has grown and developed into a flower, a rose that you still have not picked the thorns off of. And you're wondering why you keep getting stuck in certain situations. I'll leave that one alone. Y'all can digest that one later. But the last point that I want to make is you can't be independent if you depend on your job, your vices, your flaws, or God. And the reason I put all of those together is because the biggest issue is the order of depending. Most of you will depend on God last, if at all. You can't be independent if you depend on your job, your vices or your flaws, or God. And the reason that is the problem is because the biggest issue is most people will depend in that order. Most people, most of us will depend on God last, if at all. And depending on someone or something is not a bad thing. It's what you choose to depend on that makes it good or bad. So you can't depend on God last and then expect him to fix the problems that you created by depending on the other things. This is why weight loss has to be a self thing. This is why recovery has to be a self thing. This is why forgiveness and accountability have to be a self thing, because God can convict you, but you still have to make amends, and you still have to make things right in your life and in the lives of the people that you have altered, changed, affected, or hurt. So you can't depend on somebody to fix a problem that wouldn't even be there if you would have depended on them first. You can't depend on someone to fix a problem that would not even be there if you would have depended on them first. This is often the biggest but the least acknowledged reason for resentment. If you would have came to me, called me first, all of the other issues, all of the other friends that didn't answer, all of the other people that weren't there, that reaffirmed the thought process in your mind that you have nobody to depend on. So by the time you call 3 or 4 people, you don't even want to call me. This is why I say the choices that we make, albeit however small, affect the next choices that we either do make or refuse to make. Because now you've already called, now you've already asked so many people, but those people could not be there, or I've already shown you that they would not be there and you still called. So now when it comes the opportunity to call somebody that will, you're afraid to. And by no means am I saying me, by all means am I saying God. You sought out drugs first. You sought out drinks first. You sought out family first. You sought out friends first. You sought out social media first. You sought out accommodation first. You sought out acceptance first. You sought out family and friends. You sought out everything first. And because you could not have your identity, because you allowed that to be a part of your identity and you became codependent on one, if not more of those things, it became harder for you to trust and depend on God. This is why it takes so many of us so long to actually come to God, because we think he left us when we left him. We think he left us when we left him. And because you refuse to take accountability for leaving him, you cannot turn back around and go back to him. Until you take accountability for leaving God, you cannot come back and turn around to go back to him. So this is why I say dependence is not an issue. It's prioritizing your dependence that is important. Depend on the right things first, because if you depend on the wrong things first, now you will have less energy for the next thing you depend on. Depend on the right things first, because if you do not, you will have less energy for your following priorities. You depended on all of the vices and all of the flaws first. So now it becomes harder and you're more afraid to depend on the one or the two things that will actually make you better. You depended on everything outside of you before you depended on what is inside of you and what resides over. Ooh, that's good. You depended on everything outside of you except what's inside of you and who resides over you. So dependence is not an issue. It's prioritizing the dependence that becomes the problem. Depend on the right things first, because if you don't, it's going to become harder and you're going to be more afraid to depend on anything else afterwards. And healthy dependency. You must cultivate a balanced and meaningful relationship of interdependence. You must cultivate a balanced and meaningful relationship of interdependence. You have to learn to set better boundaries that protect you and still allow you safely and meaningfully to depend on people. It's real easy to depend on people for the small things and the things that you don't need. It's harder to depend on people when you do need something. It's real easy to say, oh yeah, they're dependable for the things that you want. But even if you didn't get them, it wouldn't have hurt you. It's a lot harder to depend on the people for things that if you don't get, might make you feel some type of way, might make you feel negatively, or might make you feel even more alone. These are the things that we will still wait and ask God for. So I want you this week to create the list of the things that you need in your life right now. I want you to create a list of all the things that you feel you need to change, the things you feel that you need to get, the things that you feel you don't have. And by the end of this week, I want you to take as much time as you can and think, how many of these things have I asked God to help me with first? Did I create a plan and then ask God, or did I ask God to help me create a plan? Did I ask God what to do, or did I do it and then ask God for help afterwards? This is what I mean when I say it's hard for you to depend, because you depended on yourself. And then when you made the mistake, now you want to depend on what you should have depended on first. So create that list of all the things that you need, all the things in your life that you want to change, all the things in your life that you need to move away from, all the sins that you want to stop sinning, all of the friends that you want, all of the friends and family that you know you need to get away from. And I want you to ask yourself, you can write a yes or a no, an X or a check mark next to each one. Did I go to God to solve this issue first, third, fifth, or last, if at all? And if you haven't, next week, your entire mission, or whenever you finish this, your entire mission is to make God first. Until next time, I love you, and we'll be on the next topic next week, so don't worry. But I love you, and have a good week. Thank you.